The lore and stories of the Destiny universe have always been amazing, not just because it is science fiction at its finest, but because the story has managed to keep many people engaged with the game for over 10 years. The story is vast, reaching all the way from the creation of the universe to the far future, where humanity has had to endure many horrors due to a conflict that was born long before we even existed as a species, namely the conflict of light and darkness. At the base level of Destiny's universe, one can find two entities, the Gardener and the Winnower. In what follows, I will read to you one of the first communications we received from the latter. One of your philosophers said, "It's not to be thought that the life of darkness is sunk in misery and lost in sorrow. There is no sorrow. For sorrow is the thing that is swallowed up in death, and death and dying are the very life of the darkness." He was a shoemaker. He was right, and it matters more than anything. According to him, the visible world is a manifestation of eternal light and eternal darkness, and it is in eternal opposition that eternity has revealed itself. The fall was necessary for creation to escape its first imperfect stasis and seek a truer form. Heresy? Well, then, I am the heresiarch. The philosopher died of a bowel disease. Those who do not exist cannot suffer, and of no account to any viable ethics. If the true path to goodness is the elimination of suffering, then only those who must exist can be allowed to exist. It is the nature of life to favor existence over non-existence, and to prefer the fertile soil to the poisoned wind. Because those who open their mouths to that wind pass from the world and leave no descendant, whether of flesh or of thought. But imagine the abomination of a world where nothing can end and no choice can be preferred to any other. Imagine the things that would suffer and never die. Imagine the lies that would flourish without context or corrective. Imagine a world without me. The text might seem a bit complicated, so let's try and break it down. The opening lines interpret darkness not as a misery or despair, but as an essential, even life-affirming component of existence. The idea that sorrow is swallowed up in death suggests a cyclical or transformative perspective where suffering gives way to something else, perhaps peace or renewal. Darkness and death are not antithetical to life, but intertwined with its essence. The shoemaker the Winnower is referencing in this text is likely to be Jakob Böhm, a 17th century German mystic and shoemaker, whose writings often dealt with the interplay of light and darkness, the fall of humanity, and the nature of divine creation. Bohm saw duality as essential to the unfolding of creation and the revelation of divine will. The dualistic framework of the universe is made up of eternal light and eternal darkness in constant opposition. The struggle is not destructive but generative, revealing eternity itself. The Winnower asks us to imagine a world where nothing dies and horrors it might bring. It tells us that those who do not exist cannot suffer and therefore hold no moral weight. By extension, it asserts that existence and the propagation of life through flesh or thought are paramount. Life inherently favors existence over non-existence and selects for what thrives, implying a kind of naturalistic morality grounded in survival and flourishing. Therefore, a world where nothing can end is portrayed as an abomination. Such a world would trap beings in eternal suffering, perpetuate lies, and erase meaningful choice. The Winnower opposes this vision, positioning the cells as a necessary force to ensure that life remains dynamic, choices retain value, and falsehoods are countered. In essence, this lore entry establishes the views of the Winnower, its motivation, and its goals. Once upon a time, a gardener and a winnower lived together in a garden. It was before a time, because time had not yet begun. We did not live. It existed as principles of ontological dynamics that emerged from mathematical structures, as bodiless and inevitable as the primes. It was the field of possibility that prefigured existence. They existed because they had to exist. They had no ascendant and no constituents. There is no instrument of causality by which they could be portioned into components and assigned to some schematic of their origin. If you followed the umbilical of history in search of some ultimate atavistic embryo that became them, you would end your journey marooned here in this garden. In the morning, the gardener pushed seeds down into the wet loam of the garden to see what they would become. In the evening, the winnower reaped the day's crops and separated what would flourish from what had failed. The day was longer than all of time. The night was swifter than a glint of light on a falling sugar crystal. Insects buzzed between the flowers, and worms slithered between the roots, feeding on what was and what might be. The first gradient in existence, the first dynamo of life. Rain fell from no sky. Voices spoke without mouth or meaning. A tree of silver wings bloomed, yielded fruit, shed feathers, bloomed again. In the day between the morning and the evening, the gardener and the winnower played a game of possibilities. One must understand the gardener and the winnower are not beings in a conventional sense, but principles or forces of existence. They exist because they must. They are axiomatic truths, like mathematical principles. They each represent creation and selection, respectively. The gardener symbolizes growth, nurturing, and experimentation, the act of planting seeds to explore what might flourish. The winnower represents judgment, culling, and refinement, removing what fails and allowing what thrives to persist. Together they form a dynamic cycle of possibility and necessity, creation and destruction, akin to the interplay between chaos and order or yin and yang. The game the gardener and the winnower play represents the unfolding of existence through exploration and selection. It is not a trivial pastime, but the mechanism through which potential becomes actualized. This game mirrors evolutionary processes, where variation, or gardener's planting, and selection, winnower's judgment, drive the emergence of complexity in life. The garden described in the lore entry is believed to be the Black Garden, a place which players have been visiting since Destiny 1. The Black Garden is described as a place outside of known space and time. It is now a battleground for the Vex, but it seems that it was once much more than that, a field of possibilities where the gardener and the winnower played a game of existence, which we now know as the Flower Game. Join me next time where we will discuss about the Flower Game and its implications, as well as the first knife and the final shape. If you've enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and perhaps share it with your friends. This is the first video of a lore series which I'm planning to do on the video game Destiny and Destiny 2, and hopefully you will have enjoyed this first episode. If you like what you see and have any suggestions, leave down in the comments. I'm open to any kind of criticism and suggestions. The aim being to improve my ability to tell stories and to make quality videos for you to watch. Again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.